So welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. So in this video, we're going to be going over one of my favorite films. This is The Illusionist. So The Illusionist is kind of a mixture of a mystery, kind of suspense. There's a bit of a love story here, and it's an interesting film. So the main characters you have are Edward Norton, who plays Eisenham, and Kristen and Jessica Biel, who plays Sophie. Now, in the start of the film, you see the two characters when they're young. She's of the upper class, he's of the lower class. They meet. He has an interest in magic and sleight of hand and illusion. And she likes him for that. She also likes because he treats her like he treats her like a normal person. But of course, massive. This is taking place in Austria before World War One. Very much the nobility and the classism that's still very, very prominent in these areas right now. So this is the Victorian age, Victorian or Edwardian age. Still, it's still very much the aristocrats are in charge over most of Europe right now. So again, this is pre-World War One. So I believe it's Austria. So it would be the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And she's of the upper class. So they're separated. He is pretty much told, get the heck out of here, or we're going to kill you. And he disappears. So and then we fast forward to where the movie takes place. They're now adults. He has supposedly traveled all over the world, and become this great illusionist. And she is now essentially, whether she's really engaged or they're sort of like courting Prince Leopold, who's played by Rufus Sewell. And then they're together in the sense that their families are pushing them together. She just kind of shows that they're friends. They've known each other since childhood, and it's kind of, it's expected. So they come to Eisenheim's show along with the other main character, which is Inspector Uhl, which is played by Paul Giamatti. So he's an extremely important character. So it's Eisenham, Sophie, Prince Leopold, and Inspector Uhl. These are the four major characters in this film. And so he's kind of part of Leopold's court. He's obviously not of the upper class, but he's trying to move up. So he's very much kissing up to Prince Leopold. So when Prince Leopold takes the throne, Giamatti is a loyal subject and put into a position of power, which is what he wants. He is not the antagonist in this. He is very much the observer. Yes, he's working with Prince Leopold, but he's passive in this, in a lot of what's going on. Leopold is, for all intents and purposes, our antagonist in this. So what happens is Prince Leopold, along with his group and Inspector Uhl and of course Sophie, show up. Eisenham brings magicians, they bring members of the audience up to the stage, and he does that with Sophie. Now, she recognizes him. Whether or not, she's not sure he recognizes her, though. And I can't remember what he does. He makes something disappear and reappear. Specifically, I believe a locket around her neck, which is something that he had given her and that she had for many, many years. So since they were children. So then, because Prince Leopold sees something between the two, And he's not sure of who Eisenham is because he's changed his name. And obviously, it's been a very, very long time since they've seen each other. They're all grown up. And again, Eisenham has changed his name, changed his look. He's not a peasant. He's this illusionist. So he invites him to his chateau and to do a show for him. So, and I'm trying to think, there's one other person that's semi-involved here, if I can find, don't know if, let's see, it's his manager, who I'm not sure is the name of the actor. I think it's Eddie Marsan is the character. This is his manager at the time. So Eisenham's manager. So they're obviously kiss up. This is the royal family. Obviously Norton, Eisenham knows who he is. He does not like him. He thinks he's arrogant, and he's still in love with Sophie. Now, what Eisenham does when he comes to put on a show for Leopold and his friends, he skates the line. So he does a whole sword thing where you can't pull it out, and he releases it in time for Prince Leopold to, essentially it's a whole sword and stone thing. It's like, don't piss him off. Do not piss Prince Leopold off. He can probably have you imprisoned and killed. So don't push him. And Inspector Uhl will occasionally, he's very interested in Eisenham because he likes the magician, particularly the orange tree, where Eisenham literally has an orange tree grow on stage. So the next in the movie is you kind of have this back and forth where Eisenham and Sophie are meeting in secret, and they're in love with each other, but it's like she can't escape because of her family and her social status. And Leopold's getting really pissed off, and she's constantly being followed. They have to hide in secret. Meanwhile, Inspector Uhl is watching all of this. He's talked to Eisenham. It's like, you cannot be with her. You know the class differences. You know what Leopold will do. And of course, he's an inspector. Like, I do not want to have to arrest you. I like you. You're interesting. And then something happens. This is where the mystery hits. Sophie dies. She's supposedly murdered. She's seen going to the chateau, supposedly possibly having a fight with Leopold, and then looking like she has blood on her and riding out collapsed on her horse. And then she is found supposedly dead in the water. Now, of course, she disappears, and her horse is found, and there's blood on it, and everybody, including Eisenham, is looking for her, and he's the one who finds her, and then supposedly her physician shows up and declares her dead. She's carried away, supposedly by her family, and Leopold does not see her again. So supposedly she'd had this massive fight with him and thinks she calls him drunk. She doesn't want to marry him. He's having a complete fit. He's threatening her. He's very abusive. It's like, you cannot go on and be with him. And then all this happens. So Eisenham, I'm probably mispronouncing this, kind of shuts everything down, and kind of disappears for a while because he's supposedly massively in mourning. And then he shows up again and starts supposedly bringing spirits back from the dead. He has this little boy specter who's dancing around. He's bringing kind of other people just showing up on his stage, and Leopold's pissed off. He's trying to capture him. He thinks he's crazy. He thinks he might have murdered Sophie. And a lot of people are staring at Leopold for this because, again, he was the last one who saw her, and he's known to be violent. So there's this massive Leopold slowly starts going more and more insane. And Inspector Uhl is kind of being led to see that it's very possible that Leopold actually killed Sophie. So, and then of course, Eisenham is supposedly trying to bring her back and talk to her spirit. And he does that once, and then he's nearly captured. Only it turns out he's not there either. And right before this, he gives all of his earnings and stuff to his old manager. And then he disappears. And then, basically, Inspector Uhl has a fight with Leopold. He'd been led to find, like, the jewels of this sword that, Leopold had in the stable where Sophie's horse was. And basically, he's led to believe that Prince Leopold killed Sophie. And he has contacted his father. Not the inspector's father, but Leopold's father. And they're having this fight. Leopold's going to kill him. The King's Guard is in, and he's arrested. And so he, obviously, Inspector Uhl loses his place. And as he's walking out of, like, the palace gates, a young boy who shows up, who looks very much like the inspector, and it's like, "Are you Inspector Uhl?" It's like, "I used to be." It's like, and he hands him this envelope. And in it is the notebook that shows how to do the orange tree illusion. And then you see him, basically, he goes back, he's like, and you see this kind of in his mind, so to speak, what he suspects might have. And yes, this is a huge spoiler for this. And he basically sees all these images of how Eisenham and Sophie thought all this up. They poisoned Leopold. They staged everything. She is not dead. And they escape to live together. And that's the end of the film. It's, in my mind, that's kind of what happened. But that is, when you look at the IMDb page, the purpose of this, what the director put here was, this is what might have happened. So, and it kind of shows them getting back together, her having been hidden up, and them living happily ever after, up in the mountains somewhere. You know, might be possible. Up in the mountains somewhere. And live happily ever after. And of course, Prince Leopold is done something with. His father's probably just gonna yell at him. It's like, you screwed up. But of course, all of this, again, this is historical fiction as well. So none of this obviously ever happened. The characters, exception of Prince Leopold, who I think was a real person, nobody else existed. So it's an interesting film. I'm trying to think. It's rated PG-13. Age range for this, I'm going to say middle school and up, just because of the topics. It's very much, you're dealing with life and death, you're dealing with some of these political stuff, and it can get very, very confusing for younger children to really grasp the concept. It's an extremely enjoyable film. It is one of my favorites. This is mine. I've watched my husband back when we were dating. So it's very much an interesting film. And they do a lot of great stuff with the imagery and the magic and what it's doing. It's a very different magician film because it's set in this historic time. He's doing some interesting things. You have this weird love triangle going on, and you have Uhl, who's kind of very interested in the magic part, but he's not quite sure what the heck is going on here. So it's very, very interesting. And it's a really fun film, particularly if you're studying magic, if you're kind of looking at historical fiction and are interested in that era and looking at some of film history. This came out in 2006. It's about an hour, 50 minutes. It's an hour, 50 minutes long. So it's a fun film to watch and definitely just kind of to explore possibilities of what certain things could be doing. I really do love the imagery and just kind of the costuming and the stories. It is really one of my favorite films. So, and Edward Norton I love him in this role because this is not violent. This is not a violent film. It's PG-13 because there's alcohol and supposed illusions of violence, and stuff like that, and they're smoking. So, because again, I believe it's the Victorian era. It might be, I think it actually is Victorian. So yeah, late 19th century Vienna is what it is. And so it's an interesting. So that's the end of this review. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. Now, you guys are going to be seeing this come December. So, if you are new to this channel, you can check out my my backlog, my previous videos. I do cover a mixture of children and family and sometimes a little bit more advanced films, as well as a lot of books. So this is kind of being covered. I'm covering mystery films this month as I finish off some Catherine Lasky's Wolves of Beyond series. I have already covered Guardians of Ga'Hoole this past year, the book series. Not sure what the theme of December is. Normally I have themes each month besides the book series. So I think I'm covering mostly mysteries, which I will be covering more in the coming year. This year, off the top of my head, again, this is this is one of probably the two last videos that I am filming. The other one's going to be Cora Cook's Pancetta. And that's still on order through my public library. I have it on hold, but they haven't gotten their copies yet. So that's why this will be the last. So a lot of my 2024 videos will be shot before that. So, that's kind of thing. The book series that I've covered this year, I covered The Princess Diaries, including the Notebooks of a Middle School Princess. I covered Tamora Pierce's Song of the Lioness Quartet and the Immortals Quartet. I have previously covered her Circle of Magic, as well as The Circle Opens and The Will of the Empress. I have not covered Melting Stones or Battle Magic, the other two books in the Circle Reforged series. I don't know why I just haven't gotten to them. I do in fact own them. I will eventually cover Protector of the Small and then the Becca series. I just don't know when yet. They're not planned for 2020. So, but then I covered the Guardians of Ga'Hoole. Then I moved into another Meg Cabot series, which was Ellie Finkel's Rules for Girls, which was, I think, a 6-book series. Then I covered Catherine Lasky's The Wolves of Beyond, and then as I finish up, I'm covering the Bears of the Ice, so that's going to overlap into 2024. So, series-wise, well, that was series-wise. If you want to look at anything like, I have a tendency to cover Black History Month. I have no idea what I covered last year. Right. I know I covered Black History Month and Irish History Month in March, and then I don't remember what I covered in April. I think I covered spring stuff. I don't remember. I covered Asian American History Month in May. I think I covered LGBTQ stuff in June. I also, but I know I covered it that way. I covered vaccines this year. Trying to think of what else did I cover. It's lost my mind. What deal? What else? Okay, incoming on next year. You can check that stuff out. It's all up. So, book series wise, I'm covering both Anne of Green Gables and the Animorphs simultaneously because I was able, through the wonders of Reddit, be able to find the online copies of the original 53 books. I'm also covering the 3 current graphic novels. In fact, I have those from the library now. They're sitting over here somewhere. And the pile of stuff that I have to deal with, which is actually not very big yet. And I'm also covering the entire Anne of Green Gables series. That goes from Anne of Green Gables and through her, the short stories. So the last thing I'm covering is actually the last group of short stories the family published, which is the Blythe somethings. I don't think it's the Blythes Remembered, but that is, I think that came out in like 09 or 19. But I'm covering the she has 2 or 3 short story collections as well so I'm covering all of those. Then I'm covering the original Boxcart Children's, the ones written by the original author, which I think it's 19. And then I'm going into Wings of Fire. So those are the series that are incoming. I'm also going to be covering some interesting hobby stuff in January. Black History Month. I'm actually covering Women's History Month this year rather than Irish History Month in March. April. The Titanic. I'm covering the Titanic this year. As well, then I'm covering Asian History Month with a specific focus on Angel Island. And then I'm covering Ellis Island, or specifically the immigration coming in from the east. It's in June. July, I believe it's, what am I covering? Brain. I believe it's women's inventors. And then I'm covering food in August. I'm covering Beauty and the Beast in September. Now, I did an entire something similar on Cinderella already. You can check those out. I'm going to be looking at and reading through the original stories, the original, at least as close as we can get to where Disney based their Beauty and the Beast story on the original. Not necessarily the original French, but translate. I don't read French. I barely speak French. Moving on. September. October, I'm covering space. November, covering the Indian. Please ignore the meowing cat. Festival of Diwali, which is their festival of light, and then I'm going to cover mysteries in December. So that's what's incoming. So that's what you have to look forward to. You can check out what I previously got. And thank you. And leave a positive comment if you have one. Thank you again.